Rosa Parks was not a seamstress who got tired one day. She was a militant organizer and trained investigator who spent more than a decade documenting the systemic rape of Black women by white men across the South. A 24-year-old sharecropper named Reese Taylor had been walking home from church when 7 white men forced her into a car, drove her into the woods, and took turns raping her at gunpoint. In 1944, Rosa Parks was sent to Abbeville to investigate the Reese Taylor case. Parks managed to find witnesses, document testimony, and build a case. In doing so, she built something larger. Working with the NAACP and local activists, Parks helped form the Committee for Equal Justice for Mrs. Reese Taylor. They reached out to labor unions, women's organizations, Black newspapers, civil rights groups across the country. They wrote letters, organized rallies, demanded Alabama prosecute men who had confessed to rape. By the spring of 1945, the campaign had gone national. The Chicago Defender called it the strongest campaign for equal justice to be seen in a decade. The governor brought the men before a grand jury that refused to indict. No charges, no trial, no justice. Instead, Reese Taylor's home was firebombed and her family run out of town. She lived to be 97 and in all that time never received so much as an apology from Alabama until 2011. Before Montgomery, before Selma, before the March on Washington, the Civil Rights Movement was a movement against sexual violence. Black women formed committees, documented cases, pressured politicians, and built networks of resistance. They knew what everyone knew, and the newspapers would not print. Jim Crow was not just about water fountains and bus seats. It was propped up by terror to exert control and the systematic use of rape as a weapon. For more than a decade, Rosa Parks, along with thousands of women, investigated, organized, testified, and fought. Her life and livelihood were constantly under threat and surveillance. On December 1st, 1955, in Montgomery, Alabama, Rosa Parks boarded a city bus after work the same way she often did. She sits in the front row of the colored section. The bus begins to fill. As space ran out in other parts of the bus, the driver ordered her to give her seat to a white man. She refused. She is later arrested. The boycott was supposed to last a single day. Instead, it lasted 381. Black Montgomery walked to work, organized carpools, and refused to ride until the system was desegregated. The movement steps into the national spotlight, and then something happens to Rosa Parks. The movement needed a face. It needed a story that white America could understand, a face that would not frighten or alienate and would help the cause become legible to people who had never thought, much less cared, about what it meant to be Black in Alabama. Rosa Parks became that face, and in becoming it, she was transformed. The investigator became a seamstress. The militant organizer became a tired woman who just wanted to sit down. Her decades of work, the investigated rape cases, the campaigns, the death threats, the cases themselves, the coalition building, were quietly erased. Rosa Parks was made into a safe, respectable symbol of quiet dignity. Her radicalism was buried so deep, most Americans have never heard of it to this day. Joanne Robinson organized the boycott, ran the mimeograph machines, coordinated the carpools. She is barely remembered. The Women's Political Council, the group she led, did more to make Montgomery possible than almost any other organization, and they too are a footnote. We tell the story of civil rights as a story of men, a story of marches and speeches and moral persuasion. We tell it as a story of nonviolence, of turning the other cheek, and quiet courage. We do not tell it as a story of Black women's bodies. We do not tell it as a story of women who armed themselves, who organized, who refused to be silent about what had been done to them. We don't teach that the Civil Rights Movement began as a movement against sexual terror. We don't teach the names of women who built the infrastructure that made Montgomery possible. We teach the safe version, the one with the tired seamstress and the quiet courage and the arc of history bending towards justice. And so the violence becomes unspeakable. As it becomes unspeakable, so too it becomes unremembered. And because it is unremembered, we can pretend it was never central to the story anyway, and that civil rights was about dignity, not survival, about asking politely, not fighting back. Rosa Parks kept a photograph of Reese Taylor for the rest of her life. We don't teach that either. We turned Rosa Parks into a symbol of patience. She was a woman who had spent a decade looking at what white men did to Black women and decided she had had enough. That's not the Rosa Parks we remember. That's the Rosa Parks we erased. That's the part they leave out.